You have 5 seconds to subscribe, or he will be behind your back. Cops and other law enforcement people of Reddit, what were some cases you worked on that made you think, even if for a moment, that something supernatural/paranormal was going on? Former EMT/firefighter here. One night we got a call to do a wellness check on someone who dialed 911 but didn't respond to the operator. We pull up to the address and the house looks perfectly quaint and a little old lady greets us at the door. We asked her if she knew who placed the call, but she told us that she lived alone since her husband died. We barely got back to the station before a call comes in again, same address as before. So we drive back out, talk to the old lady again, then leave again. And just as we get back to the station, same call, same address, no response. We drive out there again, believing that the old lady must have been confused. But this time, when we pulled into the driveway, the old lady wasn't at the door to greet us. There was no reply at the door, but it was unlocked. We take a peek inside to find the old lady was on the floor and wasn't breathing. We rushed in to help and got her to a hospital in stable condition. When she woke up in the ambulance, she still claimed that she never called us and that we arrived almost immediately after she had fallen. It was a 15-minute drive to her house from the station. Before she was admitted to the hospital, she asked me and another EMT if we could bring her knitting needles and bag of clothes to her in the hospital. I offered to pick up her stuff because I had a friend who lived in that area and we were gonna hang out anyways. I pick up my friend and drive to the lady's house. I ran inside to grab the bag and knitting stuff while my buddy sat in the car. But just as I was leaving, I swear I felt a hand on my back and heard a voice say thank you. When I get back in the car, my friend asked me why couldn't the lady's husband bring her stuff to the hospital? I explained that her husband was dead, but when I said that, my friend said, but I saw an old guy in the window. He smiled and waved at me. At first I refused to believe in anything supernatural, so I called the police and asked them to do a sweep of the house. I thought it was a squatter. Nothing was out of the ordinary and no one was inside. I later brought my friend to visit the lady. He started describing the old dude who was in the window, but the old lady almost immediately started tearing up and said, "That's my Harold." I just got really teary-eyed out of fear. Obligatory not my story, but when I read this, I thought it was pretty fked. An elderly lady phoned 911 and requested that they send some policemen down to her house because she saw a shadowy figure lurking in her backyard. She was living by herself at night and didn't feel safe watching someone through her window. When the policeman arrived, the door was unlocked. They walked in and found the lady seated facing the window, and they went to go check the backyard. There were no signs of anyone attempting to break and enter, and nothing was missing. She had very tall fences surrounding her property, making it nearly impossible for anyone to get into it. They did, however, find footprints on the inside of her home. It was quite possible that she had left the door unlocked and wasn't looking outside, but rather at a reflection of someone inside of her home. Behind her, whoever came in saw a nice little house with the door open. As soon as he steps in, he's greeted by the sight of a frail old woman staring out the back window, silent and still. Judging by the footsteps, it sounds like he noped right out there. EMT here. Once had a call at our local mall. Show up and an 8-year-old was having breathing problems. Her mother, aunt, and cousin had just been caught stealing, and it was late at night. We assumed the breathing problem was stress induced. Once we got into the back of our unit, she looked my partner and myself in the eyes and said that she lived at a bad place. She said she lived with demons and ISHTU, not as she described the demons. Her heart rate plummeted to 90 BPM to 45 BPM in a matter of seconds. My partner and I looked at each other and immediately started trying to lighten the mood and preparing for a code. She ended up being okay. I will never forget that experience. Edit. Yes, once we had her stable, police were definitely involved. My medic contacted CPS as well. My grandpa was a REO in Vietnam. Basically the guy who told the pilot where to go and what was ahead. One day him and his team is finishing up a mission, and one of his buddies in another jet barrel rolls over them. He then descends into the clouds. They never saw them again. He just vanished. They searched for weeks, but no crash site, no communications, nothing. Just poof, gone. Edit. Holy crap, this blew up. For clarification, it was an aerial roll, not a barrel roll. Sorry, I was tired. And they were coming home from a mission. They were over friendly territory when he vanished. They were over the cloud line, so my grandpa is unsure of where exactly they were when he vanished. It was such a sick move that the dude couldn't be seen again cause he knew he couldn't top it. When I was in Afghanistan on guard duty, I turned to see this huge panther in the middle of a farm field. The thing must have been 30 feet long. My heart started pounding like crazy, and I just about radioed it in. Then I realized my nods removed depth perception, and I was seeing a normal cat about 5 or so feet in front of me on the guard shack ledge. Best day of that cat's life. So this one time, I scared a Marine to death. Yeah boys, that was a fun day for me, and probably the funniest thing I've ever done. Except put my fur in their coffee cups, and knocking over the grenades off the tables. Yay, that's fun too. This is unexplained, and probably just coincidence, but I still never mention it to my co-workers. I spent some time as a homicide investigator. We would respond to all apparent suicides, and investigate them, just to make sure it wasn't a homicide. Usually we determined the motive for suicide, and found a note or other indicator that the person killed themselves. One guy just taped a note to his chest that said happy now BTCH, and made sure his wife found him after he hanged himself. But occasionally you get a case where all forensic evidence indicates that the person killed themselves, but there's no note and no discernible reason why this person would be suicidal. These are people in good health with decent careers and a seemingly happy family life. But who knows what's really going on with someone. Here's the part that freaks me out. I've worked maybe 10 suicides like this. The last 3, before our left homicide, all had the same thing at the scene. These was a little decorative wicker lighthouse at each location. It was the same lighthouse, same design and painted white and blue. It stuck out to me the first time because it was by the bed where the body was, but 2 weeks later I saw the same damn lighthouse on another suicide and even pointed out the coincidence to a patrol officer. A few months later I go on another suicide and I see that same wicker lighthouse. That's when it clicks that it's always been unexplained suicides. I go back and look at crime scene photos from every suicide I've worked. In 2 of them, I see what could be the wicker lighthouse, but the angle is off, and there's too much junk around to say for sure. I dunno. I thought it was creepy as hell, but I transferred a couple of months later, and I let it go. Edit. Well, that got more of a response than I was anticipating. To answer the question of was it a serial killer, I very much doubt it. These were clearly suicides, most of which had no feasible alternative explanation. We work every suicide as if it were a homicide. An apparent suicide is almost always a suicide, but we are on the side of caution. Also, while serial killers are actually more common than most people think, they rarely leave calling cards or anything like you see in movies. It's usually some fed up dude that has a particular taste. I really do think it was an odd coincidence, but it was still pretty fkin creepy. Not leb but am paramedic / fire. Late summer night responding to a call in a rural area. My partner and I were driving down a winding 2-lane highway in the middle of nowhere. No light of any kind other than the headlights and moon. We are coming up on a sharp right turn when I see a man traveling across the grass from an area of brush. He's moving very quickly and smoothly, as if hauling ass on a bicycle. No up and down motion like running. Obviously, I'm pretty confused about a hillbilly on a bike in the middle of the night, but not surprised. He comes to a tree and stops. It's about this time we are driving by him. Look out window and see a man standing next to this tree with no bike or anything in sight. Just standing there staring at the truck passing by. My hair is standing up. We continue towards the call and I ask my partner if he had seen that guy. His response is, "Man, I thought I was crazy." Edit for clarity. Am I doing this right? He cold been freakishly fast running. Old school ghost road / hid the bike. Or I could be a plain dumbass. Perhaps sleep deprived is a better description. What made it so freaky was the speed he floated across grass / gravel, the abrupt stop, and then the stare. Been doing this for years and it's the only thing that could come close to paranormal. Adding to the creepy factor was that we were miles from any house, store, or bar. Edit also for some grammar. It was Mos. I was an EMT for a while. we got a call about someone who was riding their bike at a breakneck speed when they hit a car head first without a helmet. We went over immediately, despite the fact that it was broad daylight and we were in the middle of suburbia on a Saturday. Nobody even came to check on this poor guy. Seriously, the streets were empty. Usually a massive crowd gathers around violent accidents like this. So his skull was pretty much smashed in, and he was unresponsive. It was the worst head injury I'd ever seen. We assessed that he had a major skull fracture, a concussion, and he was bleeding profusely. He was also missing teeth, and had a minor road rash, but fortunately he wasn't missing much skin. To give you an idea of how bad it was, this was the kind of injury that most people don't survive. If you did survive, you'd basically be a crippled vegetable. Normally we would've moved him off the road, but when someone has a head/neck injury, that isn't very safe. My partner, who was also training me as I was still kinda new, went to check his pulse while I began to unload our gear. He crouched down, felt for a pulse for a while, and then stood up and opened his mouth to say something. Suddenly, the guy f***ing jumped up. He didn't use his arms to pick himself up, he just f***ing jumped to his feet. It startled the two of us. He looked at us, smiled, and attempted to grab his bike. We tried to stop him, but we didn't exactly want to wrestle him to the ground given his condition. He gets away from us and bolts into the woods without his bike. My partner was in even more disbelief than I was. He just stared at where the man had run off, mouth agape. Then he turned to me and muttered he had no f***ing pulse, man. I asked him if he was sure, and he swore up and down that the biker was clinically dead. We contacted the authorities for assistance, and they sent a search and rescue team into the forest. I don't know if he was found or not, because we normally don't get much information about patients after they go to the professionals. Keep in mind that this was the Pine Barrens, so they had a lot of ground to cover. My best guess is that he went to a loved one's house out of confusion. What I found odd about that is, head injuries bleed like f***ing hell, so you'd think the guy would leave long red trail of blood for the cops to follow. Edit. Grammar. I originally typed on mobile. Sorry. Edit 2. It seems I left out some details. 1. I'm not an EMT anymore. I was only an EMT for about a year. I decided the medical field wasn't for me, and I switched out to pursue computer science. 2. Don't get EMT and paramedic mixed up. We are only taught the basics of first aid, and then we just take a test. It's basically the lowest level job you can get in the medical field. So we can't legally pronounce someone dead. In fact, we almost always leave fatal accidents to the more qualified people. Had this person actually been dead, we wouldn't have done much. 3. I didn't mean this was a fatal accident. The shock wasn't that he just sprung back to life, but rather that he was alive despite lacking a pulse. 4. The guy was riding his bike very quickly through a suburban area when he struck a parked car. The car was a hatchback, parallel parked on the street. The house the car was parked outside of was, presumably, who called us in, but for whatever reason people seem to think that you can just call us and be done with it. It was a bit out of the ordinary that nobody seemed to notice that an accident happened, though. 5. I have no idea what happened to the guy. Head injuries usually cause people to become violent/uncooperative, but you've got to be very careful with them, because moving their head/neck around too much can cause damage to the spine. When he got up it really took us by surprise, and it didn't help that he moved pretty damn quickly. As he attempted to grab his bike, my partner attempted to grab his arm. He pretty quickly slipped away and ran. We immediately contacted authorities and told them. They arrived, we told them what we knew, and then they sent a small team to find him. I imagine they did find him, because he clearly was never reported missing. If he had, I imagine the news world jumped on it. The first responders are never really given information about a patient after they do their job, so I can't say for sure what happened to him after he ran. I can say with complete confidence that he had no pulse when we found him, but somehow he was still alive. Edit 3. My inbox is fked. I really didn't think this was that interesting. Thanks for the karma. Edit 4. I owe a friend of mine a favor, and I decided to pay it back by seizing the opportunity to shamelessly promote his music for him. It actually is kinda good though. I wouldn't be helping him out here if I didn't think so. Here's his Bandcamp. Please give him a chance. He works really hard on this stuff and I want to see him succeed. Thank you very much for watching. In the comments under the video, write what you think about all this. And also do not forget to watch our other videos. Bye.